Well, hello, With Gratitude Matt listeners. My name is Matt Moran, and I'm the host for the With Gratitude Matt show. I am so excited for today's show. So often today, in the world that we live in, we sense a element of division, and that could be from a political standpoint, certainly from a global perspective with what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. That's very pronounced today. I encourage us to think about the world we live in with more unity. I ask you to think about how we're united, and I believe we are united through Christ. Our Heavenly Father created us and has designed us to be united. I am so grateful that today's guest is certainly aware of that. Wayne Boxmiller is the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at St. Xavier High School in Cincinnati. He has worked in the D&I space for over 20 years and is an experienced trainer and facilitator, developing several training modules, including implicit bias in symbolism, 1 degree of distraction, and intentional teammates. Wayne also led award-winning employee resource group facilitating multiple training programs through Crossroads Church Undivided program on racial reconciliation, and recently monitored a diversity discussion on race and hockey with the Cincinnati Cyclone Hockey Club. Wayne also uses his platform as an op-ed contributor to the Cincinnati Enquirer to foster inclusion, including his most recent article, Keep Wearing Your Stripes, encouraging Bengal fans to continue being intentional about connecting with those who are different from you. In addition, Wayne uses his platform as the pregame, halftime, and postgame host of the Cincinnati Bengals Radio Network to build unity through sports. I was so grateful for when Wayne recently sent me his book that he wrote, You Wake Up and You Win, Developing a Winning Attitude in the Face of Adversity. Wayne, I'm so grateful to have you on today's show, and thanks so much for that book. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate you sharing my platform with the audience.
Oh my goodness. When I got that book and I touched on it, developing a winning attitude in the face of adversity. There's so many common correlations. I oftentimes talk about finding the courage to be grateful regardless of how powerful the storm is.
Yes.
And I was just blown away to see your book, and I'd love to hear how or what drew you to writing that, and where that kind of came from.
Well, it's really an interesting story. It's the third of 3 books I've written. I love writing poetry. I hosted poetry nights in Cincinnati. And, as we all do in our quiet time, sometimes we actually have to sit and listen when God is speaking. And I just felt He put on my heart that I should do some books. Um, and it was like, okay, if you do 2 books for you, you have to do 1 for me. So that was the trade-off. And so I did 2 books of poetry. The first one was From the Soul of a Man. The second one was called um, Love Exercises Made Easy. And this last one came to me. I'd always been a grateful person. My parents went through some tough times and showed me how fragile and short life was. But the gratitude space was something I used to always just say flippantly, "Oh, you wake up, you win. Hey, Wayne, how you doing? Oh, you wake up, you win." And I meant it because of my parents. My mom died at 47. My dad was permanently disabled at 39. So I literally meant, you wake up, you win. And then that became the impetus for the book. I worked with a dear friend of mine who was an ex-PNGer to try to get kind of a positioning statement on the book. And he kind of said, "Hey, man, I mean, what you're doing is helping people develop a winning attitude in the face of adversity." I was like, eureka, that's it. And so it really means a lot to me because I think everybody's going through something. I don't care who you are. You're either going through it publicly or privately, but everybody's going through something, especially in this day and age. And to know that gratitude is really the X factor to get through any scenario. It's not going to change some of your circumstances. Certainly not going to be the cure for certain things. But if you can find gratitude, man, you just got a window of sunshine that'll be hanging around you.
Well, I meant to lift it when I was introducing the book earlier, but here it is, and so grateful that you shared it with me. Wayne, what's the best way for our listening audience to pick that up?
You can go to youwakeupyouwin.com or go to Square. If you're on the Square platform, it's there, and you can always Google search.
Awesome. I touched on the fact that you're at St. Xavier High School today, and I know my listening audiences knows the impact that school had on me, has on me today. I graduated in 1987, Wayne. At the time, ironically, if you would have walked into our graduation and saw the last two individuals graduate from my graduating class, who were Colby Young and Joel Youngblood, the only two black men in our class, if you didn't know that, you would have thought we were 100% black. But the reality is we were probably 2% of color at that time. And I know the school is radically different today, in large part because of the intentional effort. But what does it look like today?
Well, we're right around 21% students of color. I think it's just great how St. X has leaned into uh, welcoming students. And I don't want to kind of just use the word diversity. I want to say welcoming students, and those students just happen to be students of color. I think I'm just a few years older than you, I wish. I graduated from high school in 73, well aware of St. X and the perception that that school was for people that didn't look like me. To be in the school now and to see that there are students, Asian American, African American, Hispanic American, all walks of life, who are welcome into the school. I think St. X needs to be proud of what they're doing. And next year's class is actually trending around 25% student of color.
That's
So
awesome.
John Ravenna is a guy that I give a lot of credit to, and I just never, ever will ever do an interview without talking about John Ravenna and the work he's done, because I typically say John poured the concrete, I just get to walk on it.
Well, John, actually, for listeners, active listeners of the show, you may recall John was the second guest that we had on. Funny story about John. I called John when I was thinking about doing this show, and I said, John, because he was classmates with me in 1987, and I said, John, I really want to have somebody from St. X High School on to kind of represent what the school's all about,
Sure.
what it taught us, this and that. And he goes, oh my gosh, he goes, I could think of a dozen people that would be remarkable. And I said, John, I think you're missing my point. I want it to be you. And he says, well, gosh, I don't know if I can do it, but he did a remarkable job. And I'm just delighted to say that he's a friend of mine today. And I'm proud of all the work that he did, but really proud of the work that you're doing today, Wayne.
Yeah, I'm really happy with St. X President Tim Riley, Principal Terry Terrell, and our current principal Dan Lynch. I mean, the credit, a lot of it goes to them, because they said, "Hey, we're invested in an equitable environment of education. We want everybody to have equal access, equal opportunity, and be treated equally." And so, when your leadership, and I've always said, if it's top down, it'll change. If it's not top down, it won't.
Yeah. Well, I know when we first connected and we talked about you joining the St. X community, that was a difficult decision that you had to make, and in part because of the perception that you had. And what have you learned about the school that may have been one of misunderstanding of what the school stands for really today?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I love saying this. I was wrong, right? I just wish more adults would just simply say you're wrong. What's the big deal? You're wrong about something, and so you're admitting it, and you're recognizing different. But so many of us want to hold on to our beliefs or truths, even when we realize that there's an inaccuracy. For me, I didn't think I would be welcome as a person of color. Be very candid about it. I'm walking in the door. I had never been in St. X except for one prior time, and that was to talk to John Ravenna about diversity. Prior to that, I had no knowledge of what was inside St. X. I knew a couple of people that went there. In my mind, St. X was not a place that would welcome me. So when I was called about the opportunity, I initially turned it down because of my perceptions. And when I got inside, I remember my interview process, and I saw this diverse group of people sitting at the table. I'm like, wait a minute, can't be St. X because my St. X means Brooks Brothers suit, Brooks Brothers suit, you know, World's guys, you know. So it was this diverse group of people. And when I got hired, I was thinking, okay, you know, here we go. And I walked in, and from day one, there were just people saying, "Hey, welcome, glad you're here. If you need anything, let me know." So I said, "Okay, that's week one, you know, your honeymoon period. Okay, that's week two. This is just a long honeymoon. Okay, 1 month in. All right, boys, people love the honeymoon period." And finally, I just realized, man, you know, just a lot of good people inside this building and trying to do a lot of good things with all kids. You know, we're not utopia. Don't want to give anybody that impression. However, what St. X does and how they prepare men to be leaders and men for others and things of that nature, I'm just happy to be a part of that. Happy to help those in the building get a little bit better understanding of cultures. And I think that's the biggest joy for me is when you have teachers that come to you or administrators and say, "Hey, Wayne, not really sure how to handle this or my approach, or would this be deemed offensive?" To have them come to you so that they can get it right is a beautiful thing. They want to get it right. And so they take that extra step and we have those conversations. I've gone in classrooms and taught with Matt Kemper. He was doing a class on the Little Rock Nine. Henry Aaron's in the English department. We did a class on Asian Pacific American hate. I've gone into Jay Billings' class to talk about Billie Holiday and the strange fruit story about the lynchings. And so to be able to lend that perspective firsthand, those kinds of things to me are priceless.
You know, you just brought up Henry Aaron's, another classmate of mine from St. X High School. We got St. X is well represented today from class of 1987. We also have Scott Martin, who's a classmate of mine as well. So
Yes,
well
yes.
represented. You know, one thing I think we can learn from what you learned about the perception of St. X High School, maybe what was originally incubated in 1973. Fast forward to the 2000 late 2010s to call it 2020, things evolve,
Yes.
and we got to be careful about letting our views on things be cemented in because if you did look at St. X High School in 1987, it was predominantly white. Like that's a fair assessment, but it has intentionally changed.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it was. I mean, that's the thing I say to people a lot of times. You can't change what happened, but you can change what will happen.
Yep.
And so I think that the thing that we're looking at in all aspects of St. X culture wise is, are we a welcoming environment for families and students? Are we a great place to work if you're a person of color or gender specific? You identify a certain way. And if you're socioeconomically unique, we still feel respected and seen. And those are the things that we constantly work on. I mean, it's no different than Procter and Gamble or any other corporation. All of us want to be seen and all of us want to be valued. I mean, this month we're celebrating Women's History Month, and a lot of people might say, "Well, you're an all boys school. Why are you celebrating Women's History Month?" Well, 46% of our workforce is women.
Yeah.
And so we want those women in the workforce to be appreciated, to be valued, to be seen. We celebrate every year that I've been there. I started celebrating. We built a main display last year. We put a picture of every woman that works at St. X in our main display case, from vice principal all the way to maintenance to department heads. It didn't matter. They were in that case, and we're saying thank you. This year we're doing some different things, and today we put in their mail slots. We put these nice packages for Women's History Month with gummy bears. I'm thinking gummy bears. What are you doing? Well, my diversity coordinator, Jalaria Bird, who is simply phenomenal, And she said, Wayne, trust me, this will work. And I'm like, I don't know, man. And after I got about 6 or 7 thank yous for the gummy bears in particular, I knew once again she was right. So, but again, to get a note card from a teacher that says, I've been here for over 10 years and I feel valued in what you've done, to me, that's why I'm there.
I know you're doing some remarkable work there. Just I had an opportunity to connect with John recently, and it's amazing. I guess put you on the spot. What one thing are you most proud of in terms of the work that you're doing today?
What I'm most proud of, to be honest with you, man, is seeing our kids connect with each other who look different. I'm just when I see, for example, a white kid with a black kid and they're together simply because they have similar interests, or I see a Hispanic kid with an Asian American kid because they just were in class together and got to know each other. That is what this is all about. Taking the filters down, removing the obstructions and the obstacles, and just become two people. And I've often said I do diversity training a lot, and I've often used the example, and you know this, Matt. You go get a play box out in the yard, and you fill it with sand and a pail and a bucket, and you go get kids from every culture and tell the adults to leave. When you come back, it's going to be dirt on each other. There's going to be fun, and there's going to be all this stuff going on because all they see is a commonality,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, the adults come to the playground, and what do? Oh, my white kid is playing with that Hispanic kid. Hey, come here. Hey, my black kid is playing with it. And kids know what happened. They know you're pulling me away because I look different from him. And then that's where it all starts. And so for me, the joy is, man, those guys come in my office, man, and they may be two different looking guys. And I just look and go, man, the world's going to be okay. I think the world's going to be okay.
That's awesome. I want to move a little bit beyond the walls of St. Xavier High School, though, because it's a small representation of not only Cincinnati but the world in total. When you think about the communities, and I live here in Buffalo, I would say it's just my perception of it. It's less diverse than even Cincinnati. What can we do in the local communities that we live in to make a difference in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion?
That's and I don't want to sound trite when I say this, but it's an easy one. Be
Yeah.
intentional.
Yeah.
Just be intentional. Here's the thing that I say, and I wrote. Thank you for mentioning the Enquirer op-ed piece about keep wearing your stripes. So I went to the Super Bowl. Obviously, I do radio for the Bengals network, but I've always said that sports proves that when you want to get along, you can. Because if you get me a black Buffalo Bills fan and a white one and a Hispanic one and a female one, and they all put on their jerseys and they're all walking to that stadium, nobody cares about any color except that blue. And in that moment, there's this intentionality to come together. And I see it every Sunday at Paul Brown Stadium, or when I was in Los Angeles in the hotel, it was Bengal Central. And nobody looked at anything other than you had stripes on and it was a hello or a who day. So my answer to you is simply be intentional. And if it means putting on a Buffalo Bills jersey and walking into a part of town you've never walked in, that jersey is going to give you some credibility. And you say the other magic thing I say, hello. Hello is a magic word. Hello. Because usually if you got on the Bills jersey and you say hello, or if I got on the Bengals jersey and I say hello, the person typically will speak back and then you're off and running.
That's awesome. Thank you. We had, up here in Buffalo, we had a disappointing close to our football season, and
Yeah.
certainly the Bengals did as well. While we're on the topic of the Bengals, what do you think a championship would do for the city?
Oh, are you kidding me? I mean, what they did this year, anybody that said that they expected them to go to the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year, I'm going to question your credibility. Because we thought that they would be better. Let's not kid ourselves. Everyone thought this team would be significantly better. But I don't think at the beginning of the year when preseason started, I'll be honest, I didn't have them going to the Super Bowl. I had them winning 9 or 10 games, which I thought they won two the first year, four the next year. I thought 10 would be the number. But what Zach Taylor did with the team, what the team did with each other, and they really had this genuine friendship and like for each other. They were able to leverage that, and you saw what happened with the city just on this run. I mean, the gentleman Bengal Jim, who I had a chance to get to know, setting up the tailgates in every city, and uh, fans coming out of the woodwork, and the city is orange lights everywhere. I mean, winning, as they say, cures a lot of ills, and it just makes you feel good. But I think because it's been since 1990, since any team in Cincinnati's won anything, you're talking what 32 years now.
Yep.
This city is a sports town, and so to be a sports town and have 32 years without a championship, it would just this city would just be electric, alive, and again, you would see people who are different from each other hugging and high fiving. And I know Neil Lucan had talked to me today. I've got to call him back. He does a Reds opening day parade. Another time you'll see Reds fans and they're all just next to each other. It's baseball season. But man, the intentionality that sports provides us is the blueprint for us all getting along.
That's beautiful. Talk about the Bengals. If you just look at the relationship, and I think it was genius for the Bengals to draft Jamar Chase. But if you just look at the relationship that he and Joe Burrows have, I mean, that's a strong representation of the relationships that the broader team has for each other.
Yeah, I asked Joe Burrow when he got drafted, and I did this purposely. I have no problem saying that. I asked him a question that was along the lines of diversity because of the different types of teammates he had. And the way he answered that question, I called my brother, my older brother Jeff, and I said, "We have a quarterback." Because his awareness of everything around him, not just football, but the difference in the players and where they're from. And he talked about, hey, I've guys from Chicago on the team and Louisiana, and we learn from each other. And he just has this sense of awareness that you can't teach. It just is an innate, God given ability that he has. Even when they went to the Freedom Center, he stepped up to the Freedom Center and said, "Hey, I'll do the speaking." And it's just the young man is impressive. And I just tell you, he knew having Jamar Chase here was something that would be a difference maker immediately because, as you said, their connectivity again, it's just a beautiful thing, man. They know each other like twins.
Yeah, they certainly do. It was fun to watch this last season.
Yes.
I'd like to move, if we could, Wayne, to corporate America. If we could take a second there, I'm in corporate America. My observation of what I see is certainly women have become stronger leaders in corporate America. We see representation of leaders, black leaders in the corporate world as well. Examples of that is Marvin Ellison at Lowe's. Rosalind Brewer at Walgreens, and Russell Stokes at GE Aviation, all CEOs of their respective organization. Any comment as it relates to black men or women in their leadership roles in the corporate world?
Well, I'm very pleased for them. Obviously, I'm frustrated for those who've earned that opportunity and haven't gotten a chance. I think diversity has been proven. The data is there now that it's a business imperative and it's a business advantage. And I often think a story back when I was doing some diversity for a company, and they were looking at their market share and they looking at their biggest segment in terms of audience profile. And the profile was white female 35 to 54. That was their sweet spot. In the other demographics, they were not really doing that well. And so they brought me in. We were doing some, digging and research. And I said, hey, I was looking at a lot of data. I said, can I meet with your team? And the person who was the lead said, absolutely, we're going to have a marketing meeting. And I walked in a marketing meeting, and the whole room was white women, 35, 54. I said, I found a problem. She's like, what is it? I said, you're marketing to each other. Somebody comes up with an idea because you guys are so similar that everybody keeps agreeing, and they're not tapping into the audience as a whole or looking at other aspects of marketing. So, when you think about diversity, I mean, even this scenario, when you think about you and I, you've seen the world through a different lens than me. But if we sit down and start talking, then that's why I have the 1 degree of distraction. I believe it's 359 degrees of connection. But I think of 1 degree of distraction. And I use the example a lot of times of you being in the most beautiful home that you've ever built, right? And it's just everything you wanted. Your wife said it's perfect, and the bedroom is opulent, and you've got all the things in there you want. The TV's in the wall, and you got the Dolby surround sound and everything else. And all of a sudden, you go to sleep, and a fly gets in your ear, right? What do you focus on? All of that beauty of the daggone fly, because you want the fly out of your room, because now I can't rest because this fly is in here and everything else. So when we focus on that 1%, that distraction, it keeps us from connecting. And I think that's what we do a lot as adults, to be quite candid, man. We tend to find that one thing I don't like about Matt. Matt's got a St. X jersey signed on his wall. How come I don't have one? And all of a sudden now I'm not even looking at Matt for the good person that he is.
Thank you. Thank you. I touched on this earlier. We're all, here because of the worst work and in that our Heavenly Father created us.
Yes.
We are united by Him. And there's a song that I love, Wayne. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not, but it is "We Are One Body."
Yeah.
And the lyrics of that song go, "I am the way, the truth, the life. I am the final sacrifice. I am the way, the truth, the life. He who believes in me will have eternal life." When you hear those lyrics and think about how our Heavenly Father unites us or wants us to be united,
Yeah.
what do you think about?
Well, it might sound funny to you, but I always have this quote: "There's no asterisk in the Bible." Right. So when Jesus said, "Love everyone," or treat everyone accordingly, or "I'm dying for all of us," uh, I always think of a quote that someone said: Martin Luther King died for our rights, and Jesus died for our wrongs. And I just think a lot of times, man, when I read the Bible, sometime and it's talking about the greatest gift is love, and there's never an asterisk in the Bible that says, well, it's just for certain people or just for people in this class. He died for us all, man. And so if you're a believer, if you've confessed and accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you're in the family. And there's no sections in the family. It's just one family. And as they say, Sunday is the most segregated day of the week, man. And that just, as I got older and started really understanding what that meant, it's kind of sad, man, to be honest with you. It's really sad that, and I think when you start seeing things happening like Hurricane Katrina, or you saw things with, outbreaks of civil unrest, and you saw this polarization of the churches instead of the unification of churches. I have a good idea where Jesus Christ would have been in the midst of all that. But then people kind of separating, well, that's them over there, or they're not helping us, or whatever, whatever. We've had so many beautiful opportunities to be one body in Christ, man, just coming together for a common cause. And when you see certain churches or facts of people doing that, you feel like, okay, they get it, and hopefully the Lord is pleased with those of us that try, and we all fail. Anybody that tries also fails. So, we just have to keep at it.
That's beautiful. I mentioned earlier a little bit of the work that you do is you often write for the Cincinnati Enquirer, and my brother my brother's very good friends with Bob Clare.
Ah,
You wrote an article
oh
about
man, don't
Janie
get me
Clare.
emotional, man. Don't.
Well, I'd love to hear how you got to know Janie. Janie, for those that don't know Janie is one of the most prolific amateur golfers out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and she lost her life recently to a fight that she fought to the last breath she had to cancer. And Bob's one of the most amazing Christians that I know, and I've had the opportunity to talk to him a couple of times since, and it's just remarkable to hear about his experience that he saw through her fight to the bitter end. How did you get to know Janie?
So it's funny. I don't know if you know this, but I knew Bob and the Clare clan well before I knew Janie.
Okay.
And so when I was representing athletes, I ran a sports marketing firm, and I had an office in the Kroger building.
Okay.
These guys would get off and on the elevator together all the time. All the time. I mean, you never separate these guys. They look like the mafia, to be honest with you. These guys are getting all the big guys. They don't say anything. And so Big Bob, I called the dad, Big Bob Clare. I would always speak to him, and he had this beautiful, cool smile. It's this cool smile. And I say, Big Bob, how you doing today? So anyway, I wanted to give you that context because I've known these guys since the 90s, right?
Okay. Yep.
So fast forward to 2000, whenever Janie and I connected. So I'm playing in a golf tournament with Ralph Lee, who played basketball at Xavier University,
Certainly did.
was doing a golf tournament for charity. So tournament was over. It was time to eat. You go in, you just grab a seat wherever. Well, Janie and I sit next to each other. So Janie, she doesn't meet a stranger. I think by now you can probably discern I don't meet a stranger. And so we sat next to each other and again, hello. And from there, she and I just, man, we started talking and we didn't shut up. And we were talking about everything from golf to work to whatever. And I don't know which one of us said it, but they said, man, we need to keep in touch with each other. And if you know her was like, heck yeah. And it's like, and so we did. So then we met up at a First Watch. So we're sitting there talking, and she's telling me about her family, and I'm telling her about my scenario. And she said something, and I still didn't connect the Claire thing. Still didn't connect it. And she said something. She says, "Yeah, my husband's company, da da da. His dad, Bob Claire." And I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "Are you talking about the Claires that were in the Kroger building that now have the offices on Chester Road?" She's like, "Yeah." I said, "I know them." It's like. And I'm like, "You're married to Bob?" So we're just like, at that point, we became so cool, even more so, and we just stayed in touch and we get together for breakfast. And what happened was, which was really interesting, was when the book came out, she bought like 20 books or something, like just for people in the office,
Yep.
and then we were talking about me coming down to do a training with her team around gratitude and just diversity. And then when I got to St. X, and obviously knew, the connections there. And then when I found out she was sick, and I just, man, it really just did something to me. Long story short, she and I were texting up until the time she passed.
Wow.
And I have a place in my heart for her it's special. When they did have the services for her, kind of the wake out at Ursuline.
Yep.
I went out and I saw Bob, and I had never met the girls. And so he said, "Hey, girls, this is your mom's friend Box." And they just lost it and just like, "Oh my God, my mom loves you." And dude, I just started crying, man. I mean, tears just came down my face because I felt like I knew them because of the way she had always talked about them, and she was so proud of them. And man, yeah, I tell you, it was a friendship that I was fortunate enough to be part of, like so many other people. Because my friendship with her would probably reflects everybody else's friendship with her if we got to spend any time with her.
No, she was, as I mentioned, and you know this, she was arguably the greatest amateur
Well,
golfer out of Cincinnati, male or female, but she was a far better person than she was
oh,
golfer.
far. And we laughed. So now we laughed about playing golf with each other. I said, Janie, no way I can play golf with you. Zero expectations of things. She expects you to make the shot. I mean,
Well, I don't think Bob would play golf with her because he knew who was a better golfer. So, but no, she's a remarkable person,
oh,
and Bob is just a remarkable man, and
yes,
the entire Claire family, just
yes.
remarkable people. And I thought I'd have, Andy was a classmate of mine, and
Okay.
just a neat guy. As we kind of wrap things up, Wayne, and I'm so grateful that you shared time with me today. And just you're doing some remarkable things for the communities that we live in, and hopefully that can spread beyond just Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But if you think about like your life,
Yeah.
and certainly there's been some ups and downs. You touched on your mother and father, but if you think about your lives and the obstacles or hurdles that you've had to climb, is there one that kind of stands out that Wayne Box Miller learned a lot about? And perhaps, if you look back on that particular situation or experience today, you can almost look back and say, boy, I'm grateful for that experience because it allowed me to grow in this way. And if you have something like that, I'd love to hear more about it.
It's funny when you had said that to me earlier in the week, and I said, "Oh, geez, I got several." Excuse me. I think the thing that comes to mind for me, man, and I love telling this story publicly, is I learned that the enemy can stop you from fulfilling your potential. And I've been a writer literally all my life. I was a closet writer. I never told anybody. I hid all my writings. The enemy had convinced me that my writing was not good. And it was under the guise because it came so easy to me, right? So I could pick up something right now and write a poem in 10 seconds. I can write something. And I just thought, oh, well, this must not be any talent. If it's this easy for me, it must be easy for everybody. And that belief, man, just false belief just kind of stayed with me until a friend of mine who is a prolific songwriter, has written for Babyface and written for other groups, and he was in the group Midnight Star. I don't know if you remember them, but a big
Yep.
R&B group. He came over to my place one day, and I did not have a chance to put away all my writing because it was on the table. I was working on it, and I was in the bathroom, and all I heard was, "Hey, man, whose stuff is this on the table?" And I said, "Oh my God." And the first thing I did, man, was start making excuses. I said, "Oh man, it's just something, it's not a big deal. I really didn't even mean." And he's like, "You wrote this? All of this?" And then I had a kind of like a moment. I say, "Yeah," because I'm waiting on the other shoe to drop. Like, this is the worst stuff I've ever seen in my life. He said, "Man, this is incredible. Look at how you strung these words together." And this, that, long story short, that gave me a belief that I could do something unique and I'd been given a unique talent. But it was only until my faith grew as a Christian that I realized that I had been held captive by the enemy because I had been blessed to do something that was really brilliant in terms of writing. And so now I'm at a place where I get to use my writing, and I'm a communicator. I've been on TV, I've done radio, I do training, I do public speaking. I realize now that God gave me that gift. So that moment was a breakthrough for me. It was really an epiphany because I had to face my fear. And my biggest fear was rejection of my work and nobody liking it. And now here I am, 3 books later, um, articles in the Enquirer. I've spoken to various places. I just left, when I left the Super Bowl, I spoke at the George Bush Presidential Library and Museum and had the pleasure of meeting President Bush and his wife. And
Wow.
so, for those that are listening, even if you're as old as I am, man, if there's something that you want to do or something you've been wanting to do, and there's something in your head telling you all the reasons why you shouldn't, I'm telling you, there's that one reason why you should, and that's because God has gifted you with a talent and blessed you to do something. And don't worry about how it's going to work out. I mean, it'll work itself out. But man, for me, I'll never forget that moment.
Wayne, I'm so grateful that we connected, and
Absolutely, man.
that was because you did a kind thing and wrote me a little note and sent me this book. And uh, if we just did more of that, we would unite. You're doing some amazing work each and every day in the Cincinnati community. Um, you know, I woke up today, and I know as a result I'm winning. Listening audience, pick the book up, learn more about the work that Wayne Box Miller is doing. Um, I'm so grateful, and I use that word grateful with intention to get to know you, and we absolutely should stay in touch. I
Absolutely.
think our goals and objectives are very much aligned. We all face different obstacles in our life, and what helps me face the obstacles that are in front of me is gratitude. I try to find the courage to be grateful regardless of how powerful my storm is.
Yeah.
Secondly, I really try to really be present to those that we're with. Each and every one of us, remember, we are united through Christ, and we have gifts that are designed to share with one another. And if we're not present, those gifts will not shine. And lastly, pay attention to how you're feeding your mind, body, and soul. Today's guest was my new friend, Wayne Box Miller. If today's show inspired you in some way, shape, or form, please subscribe to the show, share it with others, and comment on it. With gratitude, Matt listeners, until next time, find the courage to be grateful, regardless of how powerful the storm is. Godspeed, my friends.